embrace the technology and embrace the digital signature. And all of a sudden, in a short period of time, I was able to like catch up with some very seasoned real estate agents in the city and in the province, really. And like, I didn't know I could do it on my own. And that's where that problem comes in. And the profit does show up. One person with a salary job once DM'd me, and she's a good friend, and she comes from like the high school kind of a background. And she wrote like, aren't you embarrassed to be doing all this? And I'm like, aren't you embarrassed to only have 4 weeks holiday per year at your job? But like, I was still starting out, but that's what I was thinking in my head, right? Because I knew if I pushed myself this way, the profits would be there.
Problems are what? Problems are profits!
Welcome to the Problems or Profits podcast. And my idea of problems or profits is when you're faced with a hurdle, it's a choice as to whether or not to take that hurdle on. Do you stick it out and turn that into a profit, or just turn away? So today we're going to be exploring that a little bit more with Jeff Wybo. And my name is Rebecca Lynn Matheson, and my co-host here, Matt McKeever. We're going to explore this topic and more. Welcome to the podcast, Jeff.
Oh, thank you. Absolutely delighted to be here. Thank you.
Awesome. Well, I'm glad to have you on this podcast, Jeff. Jeff's obviously no stranger to the concept of problems or profits, but we'll still jump into our 3 warm-up questions first. So the first warm-up question here, Jeff, what's the most expensive thing you've ever broken?
That's a good question. Probably not too. Oh, actually, I've destroyed vehicles. Come to think of it, I thought I never destroyed my personal vehicles, but I've destroyed government vehicles before, and had a pretty good sales damage tag attached to that they wanted to charge me with, and I said, no, you guys can cover it. So, boys with toys, destroying government property. Should I tell more of the story? Or,
Yes,
no,
I definitely want to
are
hear
any of
more.
us going to disappear?
No, I don't think. I can't remember. I think it's pretty far behind. If you know anything how governments work, I think 10 years ago data, they can't really charge me with too much at this point. So it just vehicle damage that ruined a bottom of one of a SUV before, and a side panel on an SUV took a corner way too tight in a parking lot, and there was this like arm that lifted up, and pretty much the arm went on the back of my car. Oh, and I actually technically drove the car over spike strips once and popped the tires. But it wasn't as exciting as the movies. It's just a very sad, slow burn of the tires going, all the air pressure going out. So you feel shame for a whole minute, not just 1 second. Don't go into areas backwards. Go the way the arrows tell you to go. That's why there's spikes.
Oh, I love it. Okay, next question here for our warm-up is, if you had $1 million and only 24 hours to spend it before it disappears, what would you do with it?
So I would probably somehow rent a giant yacht and invite all my friends, if possible, on it for one big party that one day, if it's all going to disappear. So very selfish, but bring the friends.
That totally sounds like something you would do, or you and I would do. So final warm-up question here. Why are you Jeff Wybo?
Why am I Jeff Wybo? It's because I get myself into lots of problems, able to get out of them and eventually make some profits. But Jeff Wybo has changed over the years. Technically, he's a bit older now. He's seen a few things, and he just just always adapts these days, and less bothers him. So he just continues to move on. So Jeff Wybo now is just a guy that continues to adapt, and we will see how I continue to adapt in the next decade or so, if I can live past this interview. So
awesome. Well, I think that leads right into the first question I was hoping to ask Jeff, which was just, diving a little bit more into your background. There's been, at least a few times in your life where, from an outsider looking in, you've made some pretty hard pivots. You know, would you mind
Mhm.
just kind of talking through how you got to this point?
Sure. So I'm 36 right now. I'm at that age where you kind of forget what age you're at. So I'm 36. Um, and I think usually I drop the backstory somewhere around, 16 years old, joined the military, Canadian Army. And just I was in high school. So it was the weekends and you go away in the summers. I just kind of learned my training and came back. Didn't have the circle of friends I have now. Just kind of thought, okay, that's a job. It pays. It was really good. And I thought that's the kind of career path I wanted to go on. I thought I wanted to get more into policing at the time. And I ended up, obviously, September 11th hit. And, there's big talk, especially if you're in the military, to go deploy. So I ended up doing some extra training. And I learned to be a close protection operator, which protected our generals and our diplomats of Canada. So I got trained by American mercenaries and then deployed to Afghanistan to protect our Canadian generals and diplomats. It was a pretty prestigious kind of role that I thought. So it was kind of, maybe that defines the Jeff Wybo. I just couldn't go over there and dig poop out of some, kind of like the Gulf War looking kind of soldier that's, burning the shit somewhere deep in Afghanistan. No, I was at the embassy dinners pretty much. No. So it was typical Jeff Wybo doing the more expensive things over there. I'm probably the only soldier that brought his tuxedo to Afghanistan for some reason, just in case there was tuxedo missions. I thought that'd be important. So that was wrinkled in my bag the entire time. Just needed to find a dry cleaner. But anyways, did 2 tours to Afghanistan, did not die, and came home. And that's kind of where I kind of began my first pivot, because then I get into my real estate investing career. And I didn't want to have to keep going back to Afghanistan. I didn't want to have to go to Iraq because it was good money at the time. It's the only money I knew how to make. I knew you trade 30 days of your life and they give you $8,000. I was like, this is amazing. And it was like cash. It's the only way I knew how to make that. Now I can't even imagine why I would be doing that, but that was how you made money back then. And came home, had a bunch of those $8,000 that added up to whatever, 60 something, $70,000, and bought a triplex and started the house hacking journey. Didn't even know what that was called. Everybody talks about house hacking now, but back then, I don't know, you just rented the other units in a triplex. So I lived for free in the triplex and just sat around playing video games, living for free and trying to not actually have to be in the real world doing a job, because I didn't really think that was cool. I just wanted to, I like contracts. I like to kind of to go do some exciting things. So, but you start getting a little bit older and people are like, you should get a job. And I just never wanted a job. I didn't have a car. I never wanted a car. Everyone told me you should have a car. And I'm like, well, if I have a car, I'll need a job to pay for the car, to drive the car, to go to the job. And it just sounded horrible. And I was like, I just hate what the world's trying to tell me to do right now. But I also didn't want to be like in shitholes for the rest of my life, not controlling my own future, being told what to do. So the real estate was great. And then moved forward, I bought another property, got a duplex, continued to house hack in the duplex there, and kept the triplex. And eventually people are like, you should be a real estate agent. And I'm like, what the hell is a real estate agent? Like, is this like what you do when you're 65 years old, you're retired, you finish your job, and now you grab those pieces of paper and you walk some clients to these properties and give them the wrinkled piece of paper, shows them the property. That's all I knew. I knew like no cool people. There was no TV shows of big commissions. It was just like, oh, you're a real estate agent? Well, my dad's an RCMP officer. It's like, that was the cool dad, and their realtor dad was not the cool dad, just on the hockey team kind of back in the day. So never really thought that was a job until like you started seeing a little bit more of the social media and the TV shows, $1 Million Listing and stuff like that. But that was very early on as well. And just multiple people, because I was in landlording a little bit, said, you should be a real estate agent. You should be a real estate agent. I'm like, well, is this a job? Like, what do you do? Like, am I going to be good at this? And took the test and pretty much got lucky, because I kind of identified very early on that nobody was on the internet And they're starting to come on the internet right now. A lot of real estate agents are on, but back in 2015, 16, nobody. And I thought, this is fantastic. I have a head start in this business that, for all intents and purposes, every time you're joining late because there's already so many people established before you. And you think there's no clients out there, and pretty much joined, and I just start going ham on social media, which was so hard for me, guys, because I came from the close protection background, which was so secretive. At least we weren't overtly showing selfie mode of where we were or what we were doing. We just probably had some private documentation, but not the way you see social media today. And so then I thought, can I be a secret agent, real estate agent? And that was stupid, because apparently attention gets you a lot of money in this business, not being shy in the corner. I literally did not even want signs. Now I don't have signs for a different reason today, because I just hate the phone calls now. But back then I'm like, can I just secretly sell your house? And I really learned that that's a horrible marketing strategy for a client, to say, I will secretly sell your house with nothing backing me up. So anyways, decided to go crazy on social media, started picking up clients, just utilized my previous minimal knowledge of duplexes and triplexes, leveraged that in the first year, and did 100,000 in commission in my first year being a real estate agent, which I don't know. I'm sure people in different markets can do way more, but a lot of people can barely probably get to 20 and 30 in certain markets. So, but to be honest, the first 6 months was like nothing. And then the back half was where it kind of all picked up. But it was that first stupid 6 months where I had to like learn crash and burn so many times, learn about relationships and negotiations and all that. And then, yeah, it just starts rolling. It rolled into year 2, year 3. I don't know when you want to stop me, but we kind of get all the way to where I am now. And yeah, it pivots and pivots and pivots, because now I have an assistant, and he does most of my showings. I'm barely leaving my command center now. So it's so funny. I protected those generals that commanded the war as like this little security soldier, but like learning a few things like, they work off a schedule. They have to book in when they have to do their physical training, their PT. And like all these things that, why can't you just go do it when you want to? And like, but they're controlling so much more of the battle. And now I'm like more of a higher, in demand kind of a real estate agent, and I just can't keep up. So I had to develop some systems to actually survive. And to be honest, the pandemic has been amazing, which is not everybody probably wants to hear that, but it's been absolutely amazing, because Matt, who's on the podcast here, we'd be traveling on Wednesday nights, coming home at midnight, going to all these networking events, which was so important, especially in the beginning of our business. But I'm actually super happy we're not having to do that as much anymore, because you kind of learn those like one-to-one conversations, or potentially a 1 to 10 people is great. It's nice to get out there. It was all the old, network, amazing. But you can really utilize the internet now even more. I was ahead of the curve a little bit. Like, I never did business cards pretty early on in my career. I just thought it was a waste, even though I'm a big American Psycho fan, so you might as well always have a good business card. But you don't want to be handing that to people during the pandemic right now. I never did it before. I just said, you guys should be following my social media. That's my business card. And from that has made me so much business as a real estate agent, just following my brand. And I don't have to post that much. I just post about my day. I'm barely posting about real estate, and people just want to kind of know what Jeff's up to. Like, for example, this week I'm just posting about my heated driveway, and then it'll just lead to real estate conversations. Whereas I notice a lot of other people in sales continuously post the stats, etc. And to me, it's just so boring. I'd rather just kind of like learn about the people, and then you're going to want to reach out to them, especially if you're seeing them do well or they've sold something. You're not just always regurgitating the exact same thing as some other real estate agent has done. And recently, Matt and I have been buying a lot of large apartment buildings, so that has felt very good. And that has become a full-time job on the side, controlling the managers and all the ups and downs of the buildings, because we're up to over 100 units right now. So you can imagine one daily question pops up, then two, then three about one or two of those units all the time, right? There's always a little bit of something per week. And when it's quiet, I message the managers to be like, well, what's going on? Like, so, but that pretty much brings me up to where I am now. Sorry if I hogged the podcast, but it's my podcast.
No, I appreciate it, Jeff. And I think just to build upon the social media, because I know it's been a big part of both of our journeys, but I think it's important to understand, like in 2016, when you were becoming a realtor, as weird as it may sound, like it was a different time from a lot of investors and realtor perspectives. And there was actually like a decent amount of flack we got, right? So like,
Oh, yeah.
do you mind maybe just talking about the problems or profits mentality, or just believing in the process at that point in time?
For sure. So I guess, yeah, the problems with profit, it could just be people kind of like always wanting to put their beliefs on you. It's a bit of, there's a problem, but they wanted me to do all these door hangers and flyers and door knocking. And I thought, okay, that's cool. And I understand that works for you, but I just didn't see the new guy joining it. I thought, okay, well, there's a problem. How do I profit? I didn't really understand what we're talking about now, but I mean, you look at that and you're like, that's just not going to advance me in 1 year, because a lot of the strategies that I think it could be in a lot of sales jobs, an older salesperson will tell the younger salesperson how they made money, but it's just like the generals. They're always fighting the last war. And maybe those generals would be extremely successful because they have some connections and whatever. But the new generals, like, I don't have these connections. Like, tomorrow, if I want to do decks in my neighborhood, I just want to build decks for everybody in my backyard here. I can't go and just call. I don't have 50 calls coming in because I'm the best deck guy. I have to go then break that. So if everybody is just putting a door knocker on your door and saying, I do decks, that's the baseline, right? So how do I stand above? And okay, there's only so many people doing decks, but there's 1,500 real estate agents. And then in Toronto, there's 75,000 real estate agents. So like, what are you doing beyond mailing a mailer to somebody's house? Because I don't know, what do? Collect those all, then call you and pitch you for either the lowest commission or what can you sell? Like, it's a horrible place to put yourself in. So when Matt and I were deciding, let's go ham on social media, I'm extremely jealous that Matt got involved in his YouTube early, and I was mostly just on my Instagram. I'm on my YouTube now, so if you want to subscribe there, that'd be amazing. But yeah, Instagram was the thing. I was just showing my day. Yeah, and like Matt's saying, I think probably, now a large portion of my daily DMs and audience are all real estate investors and some James Bond fans. But back then, it was just like people like that I kind of knew. And me talking about real estate was weird for them because they knew Jeff as the soldier. Now, all of a sudden, Jeff's like, hey, so I got this duplex. And they're like, well, who's this Jeff guy? Why is he allowed to talk about this? And you just got a problem. You got to kind of push through it because one person with a salary job once DM'd me, and she's a good friend, and she comes from like the high school kind of a background, and she wrote like, aren't you embarrassed to be doing all this? And I'm like, aren't you embarrassed to only have 4 weeks holiday per year at your job? But like, I was still starting out, but that's what I was thinking in my head, right? Because I knew if I pushed myself this way, the profits would be there. And guys, I had zero training, zero, and Matt can attest. Like, me and Matt went, looked at all our properties. We both kind of just made it up in the first couple of years of Matt being more of the real estate investor and me being the straight up agent, pretty much. Just really figuring it out, going live. Like, how many times did we go live at properties? Like, the lighting probably horrible. Like, we would do YouTube shows. We would do everything. We just give, like at such a local level too. Like,
yeah. And what I'd really like to highlight and explore a little bit further with you, Jeff, as well, is the fact that, again, like, there was actually like costs at the start associated with this that were actually, like, at least on the surface, felt prohibitive. So I won't go too deep into it, but like, I know at least at points in time, like, you work for a great brokerage, but they weren't sure really about the social media. They've got certain clients that weren't really sure about social media. But even like back when you originally started as a realtor, common advice was get on a team, right? Like, get a partner, get on a team. And for a while you had a partner or a team member, But again,
Mhm.
like you guys had different visions, goals, priorities. You were doing the social media thing. We were constantly going to every networking event, and you weren't necessarily in alignment with that individual as well. Do you mind kind of just talking about that whole experience?
Yeah, like, I think that was a safety net kind of a original thing. A lot of new agents are trying to become an agent, and you're like, I don't know anything. I need to join a team. I'll just learn for a couple of years. I'll join a team. And if I can give you any advice to anybody in sales or real estate agent sales, try not to, because there's no money in making somebody else money like that. If you can do it on your own, and like I didn't know I could do it on my own, and that's where that problem comes in, and the profit does show up, because what happened in that first year? Yeah, I was negative 10,000, 15,000, 20,000. Oh, then you'd make $5,000, so that would be negative 15,000, and it was just like in a checking account kind of line of credit. But like you need a business amount of funds to operate as a real estate agent. They don't teach you that in the testing, or they might brief over it, but you don't really understand what you're getting into, and you're really hit the ground running as a business. And yeah, like they just didn't see why you'd be doing social media. Like, that's stupid. Clients like me at their house. If you guys can believe this, I'm sure a lot of your listeners sign with digital signatures these days. People were, I don't know if I can swear, they were shitting on me for digital signatures back then. And I was like, this is the greatest thing ever for $200 a year. Are you kidding? I don't need to even drive my car to go get a piece of paper signed 3 times on a counter, and back and forth. And so many agents before that, and probably real estate investors, were used to the paper. And I must have hit like the perfect time to join. Like, no bad habits, relatively. Uh, Embrace the technology and embrace the digital signature. And all of a sudden, in a short period of time, I was able to like catch up with some very seasoned real estate agents in the city and in the province, really. All because embracing the technology and social media. Yeah, we decided, oh, let's do limo tours was one of our things. And that took a lot of backlash too, because who's this new guy doing limo tours? What right does he have to do limo tours? I don't have any right, but I'm doing it. So all the limo tours was originally, this is how awesome and pathetic it was just MLS properties in a row. Come on and hang out with us, and we'll teach you about them. If you buy one, awesome. If not, high five, you're on social media. So that was just marketing. And I don't have a degree in marketing, but you can understand how to market. You just put yourself out there and you show good things. And now on social media, it can go 10x because of that, versus just telling somebody at a dinner, like the way you might have done 15 years ago even. So
Absolutely. Now, Jeff, you touched on it a little bit, but are there any lessons that you've learned as a Army veteran that you've really carried over into your business and allowed you to implement systems stronger?
yeah, absolutely. So especially in my very first year, some easy ones for anybody in relatively any business to learn. So the Army is all about timings. It's all they talk about is your timings. If you got to be somewhere for 6 a.m., you better be standing out there at 5:30 waiting for the 6 a.m. kind of a thing, right? The guy that rolls out at 5:59 is late because he's not 15 minutes early. So then you better be 15 minutes early, flinched 15 minutes early. So that's why you're out at 5:30. So timing becomes extremely important. And once you get into more leadership role in the military, they constantly put what we call, especially in the training element, artificial stressors against you. So for example, let's say I had to be somewhere for 7 a.m., but they only tell me about it at 6:30. Most people start stressing. Where's my car keys? Where's everything? I got to get going. Oh, I got to be, I didn't get gas last night, whatever. And all those little stressor things, like think about it. You're not being shot at. It's just artificial, right? Like they put the pressure on you through the time relatively. And it's pass fail a lot of times, but that kind of all of a sudden was in sales too. Clients call you, they want you somewhere. Okay, it's kind of an artificial stressor. How do I go deal with this? And then thankfully, a lot of the military training is like, okay, calm down, get the car keys, this guy. And like when you're a brand new real estate agent, the best part is all you gotta really do is go open that door. And if they ask you a question, you get to do the military answer. I don't know. I'll go find out. And which is probably in schooling, and professors probably say the same stuff, you know? So, and then you go panic behind the scenes and you go call your broker and you're like, what? He asked if this window's included. And be like, yeah, the window's included. No, but it's not that bad. But they might ask a very hard question, especially when you're new, and you can go figure it out. So timing is important. And also a few things. Dressing deportment is a military thing. You always want to be presentable, and that was easy. You know, first couple showings with Matt, I'm probably wearing a full suit until he takes me to like flea infested places, and then I'm like, all right, I need to be more like in my field dress. Got it. Not my dinner dress for a nice dinner. So start dressing a little bit more for the tenanted type properties, and then you can quick change to the $1 million listings if you have to. So that's kind of always taught in the military, just speed, being able to change at all times, different environments. That's just camouflage, adaptive camouflage. But one of the main things that I learned with the close protection guys versus the general army is tact. So if I'm around generals of Canada and I'm around diplomats and a governor general, these very high appointments within the country, you cannot you can't say the wrong things in front of them. They want to have educated conversations with you. So you might be sitting right beside them at a dinner or down. And I might be there in a security role, but everything I do is also being watched by foreign militaries, foreign governments. So you have to be very, cognizant of everything you do. So when you get to like clients now, same kind of thing. You want to be presentable. You want to know how to talk to them properly. And I found just being able to do good tact, be on time, dress in deportment, sadly, as easy as it is, that makes you a whole lot of money in sales. I'm sure a lot of people say my agent never called me back kind of thing. And I found in my first couple of years, all I had to do was pretty much do that. Just do what I say I was going to do and call them back and be on time. And be on time is also, I'll send you that report tonight. And not tomorrow morning when they're like, hey, you didn't send me that report. Like, oh, I forgot all about it. Like, that stuff irks me if I actually missed it. Other people might just not even clue in. And that's the sad part. And they don't clue in that they forgot. They just fell asleep that night and didn't do it. Like, we always would say mission first. Mission has to get done first. Then you can eat. Then you can have some water. Then you can start going over your gear. Probably go over your gear before you actually do your food. But always the mission first. And sadly as that is, you just follow those little rules. You'll make a lot of money in sales.
Yeah. And building upon that too, that's an aspect that we even brought into a lot of our event business. But I'd love to even chat about just how important attitude is. And I know your opinion on your phone has evolved since the first year of being a realtor, but like that first year, there was so many stories of us just like dropping everything because a phone call came in.
Absolutely. We were driving home from the first bus tour we went on, and that evolved into the limo tour. And it was just a client it was just a cold call. And they said, hey, I'm at the property. Can you come here right now? So today's Jeff would call my assistant, but that Jeff was extremely hungry, picked up the phone and was like, absolutely, I'll be there in 2 minutes, because I needed to stand out in my first year of why I was invaluable. He said, maybe I didn't have all the clients, didn't have all the connections, but time I could drop everything. At the time, did not have, I have a wife and 2 kids now. By the time I was just probably, we're probably married, whatever year it was. Been married for 3 years now. But shot over there and no kids to have to deal with. And we pretty much talked to that person and got it double-ended sold that night. So speed and answering your phone is very important. Today, it's ringing off the hook. So, and a lot of times it's agents that kind of take up your time. So I just needed to really go to the text and just text me what you're up to, man, versus I'll pick up your phone call. Back then, nobody was necessarily calling to grab, they were just wanting information on properties back then, and few and far between. Now they're just trying to always steal my time. So I have to be very careful about my time, because they'll just keep you on the phone, and all of a sudden it'll be lunchtime. You haven't done anything for that day, and that would irk me if I haven't got stuff done. So.
And like essentially the way I view a lot of that is just over time, the way you provide value to people evolves, right? Like when you're not in a lot of demand, we can afford to spend it one-on-one, right? We can hand bomb it. We can go to every networking event. We can stay in the back of the room till midnight or 1 a.m. But as you scale and as you start to get the ripple effects, right? The tipping point from all of the activity you've taken up until that point, it then becomes like more about social media, YouTube, having the once-many conversations, and then just really focusing on the key conversations that like move the needle.
Yeah, you nailed it, because when you don't have anything to give, you can give your time pretty much. And now it's just kind of evolving. So, which is really cool. And I'm glad this pandemic slowed it down even more, because not only can they not just, I haven't had to go to useless lunches or anything. It's just like, nope, can't do it. And it's been nice because the whole world can't do it relatively. So it's just focusing on getting the deal done. And since I was so far ahead in the social media world, it was easy. And people like to ask you, like, how's it going? I'm like, it's insane. Like, it's just DocuSign and offers. And then if you need to go, you might go to see the property once. And if I don't need to go, it's just Mazen and my assistant, and he might FaceTime. So it's just problems or profits, because it's happened too where I've had to be in one location and my assistant has to be in another location. And I've had to even rely on different agents, but that's just delegation. Eventually you learn this stuff. One, you learn it in the military, but eventually you learn it in sales too. Like, you just can't be everywhere. So you got to pick and choose your battles a little bit. So.
Absolutely. Now, Jeff, do you have any stories of obstacles or problems or blunders that have happened over your career in business that you've turned into a profit that you could share with the audience?
Well, let's see. Straight up profit. Well, Matt probably knows more than I do. So let's see. Straight up profit. I don't know. I think the problems was always being out late at night in your car and coming home late. Not necessarily at the meetup events, but at showings. And I was just from YouTube and lots of leads. And it's funny because a lot of professional agencies like to give me and say, hey, we got a lot of leads for you. Can we get 50%, 25%? And I'm like, I don't need leads. I have so many leads. I just need product. I just need more houses. But okay, so then you get all these people that are following social media and already asking me to go buy the product, the house. We're out late, and it was just too much for me. It was just too much. So, the problem would have been, well, if I hire somebody, that person's going to get 10% of my business or something, like whatever deal I cut with the person, right? And I just was like typically afraid of cutting anybody into your business. But then you're like, wait a minute, what if I can make $100,000 more because of this? Then is 10% a good thing or a bad thing? And what if I can be home more? And what if I can shoot more YouTube? And what if I can spend more time with family? So with Matt's push and with Emma Pace from Toronto, I had talking to her. She has a lot of 2 or 3 at any given time assistants running up and down the elevators of condo buildings. And I'm like, how are you doing that? She's like, yeah, I just get the lead. I do the call with them. And then I tell them that the assistant, whoever, will be there and open the door. And I'm like, yeah, but my clients want Jeff Wybo. They don't want my assistant. And I was dead wrong. They just want in the door. They'll call me afterwards. They'll FaceTime me at the property if needed, but it's actually very rare. They just want the door open. So now the problem was I couldn't handle all the showing requests, just as impossible. And now all of a sudden, insane having one assistant. I mean, I'm looking for more and more almost across the province, because another cool thing is when I first started off, especially in the first 2 years with Matt kind of going around, we were relatively only looking at London, Ontario, and I was relatively looking at London, Ontario only as a real estate agent. My social media might have been talking to North America, but my real estate knowledge was pretty much only London, Ontario. Now with the pandemic, I'm on that matrix looking at Windsor, Northern Ontario, Toronto, Hamilton, all this stuff. Now the whole province is my MLS all of a sudden. What before the car would have been the issue. Oh, I don't want to drive 2 hours. We've utilized now assistants to go open the doors, the social media, or the at least digital signatures and all the electronics to make the deal happen. So the profits have just been rolling in because I've actually focused and stayed on base, if you will, and not gone out into the field and gone and opened the door because they need to see Jeff Wybo. And then there's a 40-minute chat after the property with Jeff Wybo, and he gets home late, and then maybe you write the offer and the offer doesn't go through. So I cut out all that downtime that was so important in my first couple of years as an agent to focus on this. And it allows me so much more time to focus on purchasing my own large multifamily too, because the other stuff would stress me out because I didn't have time to focus on Jeff's real estate investing career because I was too busy making everybody else money. So because of my assistant now, no problem. He'll go open the door for you. We'll talk later for a 15-minute call and we'll get the offer written. My assistant can even write them now. I was against that at one point too. I thought Jeff Wybo has to write these offers. They're so, detailed and intricate. Nope, just need some systems. And that was the challenge. So the profit's been rolling in. It's just finding the right person to delegate. And I originally thought I wanted some 20-year-old, 21, 22, something like that. I thought they would love it. But my assistant's like 44 and immigrant hustle and just does anything. He calls me Mr. Bond. If you didn't know, I am a big James Bond fan, and calls me Mr. Bond on all the texts, so it's pretty funny. So I can't fire him until he misses one of those. But he's a super awesome guy. No way my business would have 10x without doing with him. And honestly, I look around even at my London real estate peers. I really can't think of anyone who's got an assistant, or not the way that I use an assistant. Maybe they have somebody on their team, but not really an assistant. So this person, my guy's licensed, and he doesn't need a lot of money, and he just loves helping out and being part of the team. So I also look for a lot of ways to make him more money, but he doesn't seem to be as hungry for money as we are, I guess. But take care of him. He comes to our parties pre-pandemic, so hopefully we can get him out to the next stuff. And good to call him a friend too now. So, and I got him from social media. Just put it out there, and he messaged me twice. He didn't take no for an answer. I was like, okay, fine, I'll actually talk to you, because most people just send you these crazy DMs and never follow up properly. And no, his was legit. So I was like, all right, fine, I'll meet with you. And then I hired him that afternoon, just on a handshake. Cool.
Awesome. Yeah. Social media is the gift that keeps on giving. And the key is that you just give value first into social media. Jeff, I'd be curious right now, whether it's real estate oriented or not, maybe you're too busy, but what's an opportunity you see that someone's going to make a bunch of money off of, or what's a problem that is just begging to be solved right now?
That's a good one. I should have been thinking of some answers on it before I showed up on the show. Well, it's just going to be the online space. I think getting rid of almost the physical large meetups. You can even see Grant Cardone is changing his 10X model, which we were all gung-ho to go sit in that baseball stadium and listen to him and hang out with some people. Just think he will probably make more on this one digitally than he will physically at the physical event. So it's just kind of doubling down on all those things, always shooting the content. I've been trying to use this break, and I don't know what it's called, break or pandemic pause, to do a lot of content, especially on my YouTube. Because real life's going to get back in the way and it's going to be tough. But more you can put out there, the better. If you guys are thinking of doing any YouTube channels, I would just suggest press record. It's going to lead to something, and I hope it'll lead to profits, but you can't really start out like that. It's just labor of love for a long, long, long time, and eventually, hopefully something sticks, and you never know. It might not profit because of the YouTube, or it might not profit from Google ads or something, but you might make a connection that leads to a fortune somewhere. So yeah, that and Dogecoin.
Awesome. Well, I really appreciate you making the time to jump on today's episode of Problems or Profits, Jeff. Obviously, people can follow along with you at Jeff Wybo.
Yeah, I don't have any social media. Sorry. Just kidding. Yeah, at Jeff Wybo on YouTube, Instagram, all of them. You can find me there. I answer 99% of my DMs on Instagram, unless you're a Forex trader, and don't bother texting me.
Awesome. Well, I really appreciate it, Jeff. And yeah, looking forward to seeing you on social.
Absolutely.
All right.
Thanks for coming on the podcast today.
All right. Much pleasure. Thank you, guys.
Problems are what? Problems are